It was a stormy night in Moscow. Rain hammered against the dark streets as lightning flashed above the skyline. The rhythmic sound of tires on wet asphalt echoed through the underground parking lot of the Voronov Tower, home of one of Russia's wealthiest men, Alexei Voronov. Dressed in a tailored navy suit, Alexei walked toward his luxurious black Maybach, humming softly as he checked his phone. The time read 11:47 p.m. He was heading to a late business dinner, one that could close a billion-ruble deal. Everything about Alexei screamed confidence, wealth, and control. But control can vanish in a heartbeat. As his car glided out of the garage, headlights slicing through the rain, a shadow darted across the road. Before he could react, a young boy, no older than 12, stumbled right into his path. Alexei slammed the brakes, tires screeched, the car fishtail-ed, and stopped just inches from the boy. "Are you out of your mind?" Alexei shouted, stepping out into the cold rain. The boy stood frozen, soaked, shivering, his face pale. His clothes were tattered, his shoes torn apart. "Please, don't drive," the boy gasped, his voice trembling. "Your wife, she cut your brakes." For a moment, Alexei simply stared at him, blinking through the rain. Then he let out a bitter laugh. "What kind of nonsense is that? Who sent you?" The boy looked terrified but determined. He pulled out an old, cracked phone from his pocket and handed it to Alexei. "Look." On the screen played a grainy video recorded in a dimly lit garage. A woman in a long fur coat knelt near the rear wheel of a luxury car. Her face wasn't clear at first, until she turned slightly toward the camera. Alexei's blood ran cold. It was Irina, his wife. She was whispering to someone off-screen. Her words were muffled, but Alexei could make out enough to feel his stomach twist. "Make sure he takes the car tonight, it has to look like an accident." Alexei's hand trembled as he ended the video. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. "I sleep behind the service garage," the boy said. "I saw her there 2 nights ago. She didn't see me. I filmed it." Alexei stared at him in disbelief. "Do you even understand what you're saying?" "That's my wife. I know," the boy said softly, rain dripping from his hair. "But she paid a man. I heard her. You weren't supposed to survive tonight." Lightning flashed again, illuminating the boy's frightened eyes. Alexei's world felt like it was collapsing, the trust, the love, the life he had built, all cracking beneath the weight of those words. He turned toward his Maybach, the car that could have been his coffin, and for the first time in years, the unshakable billionaire felt real fear. The rain hadn't stopped. Thunder rolled through the city as Alexei Voronov raced back to his private mansion on the outskirts of Moscow. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than ever before. The boy's words kept replaying in his head, "Your wife cut your brakes." He pulled into his massive garage, motion sensors flickering on one by one. The polished floor reflected the gleam of his Maybach's headlights. Everything looked normal, too normal. He hurried toward the security room. The monitors that usually showed live footage of every corner of his property were blank, all black screens. A cold chill ran down his spine. He rebooted the system. Nothing. The files had been deleted. He rushed to the car inspection bay and knelt by the wheel well, just as in the video. When he touched the brake line, his fingers came back wet, with brake fluid. The wires had been freshly cut, the job clean and professional. He staggered back, disbelief in his eyes. "She really did it," he whispered. Then it hit him. Earlier that day, Irina had insisted he sign a new insurance policy, just a small update, she'd said sweetly, pressing a kiss on his cheek. He thought nothing of it. Now he understood. The accident would have looked natural, and she'd have inherited everything. Betrayal turned to fury. The woman he'd loved for 15 years had planned his death, not out of hatred, but for money. He picked up his phone, hesitated, and then looked at the boy who stood quietly by the doorway. "What's your name?" Alexei asked. "Misha," the boy replied softly. Alexei nodded. "All right, Misha, you're coming with me. If she wanted a performance, she's about to get one." The mansion stood like a dark fortress against the storm. When Alexei and Misha arrived, all the lights were off except for a warm glow in the living room. Inside, Irina sat calmly on the couch, a half-empty glass of red wine in her hand, as if she had been expecting him. "Working late again, darling?" she asked sweetly, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Alexei stepped closer, his voice trembling with controlled rage. "Who did you hire, Irina?" She raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me." He slammed his phone on the table, the paused video playing her betrayal in silent loops. Her smile didn't fade. So, you found your little spy, she murmured, glancing toward the doorway where Misha stood. How touching. Why, Irina, he roared. Wasn't the money enough? The houses, the cars, everything I gave you. She laughed softly, a cruel sound that cut through the air. You were going to leave me for that young assistant of yours. Don't deny it. I just made sure I'd get what I deserve, before you could throw me away. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind them. Two men in black coats emerged from the hallway, guns visible beneath their jackets. Alexei froze. Irina's smirk deepened. You really shouldn't have come home, darling. The storm outside grew louder. The first man reached for his weapon, but Alexei lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. A gunshot rang out. Misha screamed. The second man rushed toward the boy, but Misha ducked behind the sofa, grabbing Alexei's fallen phone. With trembling hands, he dialed the police. Irina shouted, "Stop him," but sirens were already echoing faintly in the distance. Alexei wrestled with the first attacker, blood mixing with rainwater that streamed through the open doors. As police cars closed in, Irina's expression changed, fear replacing arrogance. Her perfect plan was falling apart before her eyes. The once peaceful mansion had turned into a battleground. Rain crashed against the windows, thunder roaring like an angry beast as Alexei Voronov fought for his life. One of the hired killers was on the floor, bleeding from a gunshot wound. The other, tall, silent, and cold-eyed, moved swiftly through the shadows, searching for the boy who had just called the police. Come out, kid, the man hissed, his boots echoing across the marble floor. This isn't your fight. But Misha didn't move. He crouched behind a heavy oak desk, clutching Alexei's phone tightly. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst. Through the phone's speaker, the emergency operator kept asking, "Hello? Sir, can you hear me?" Alexei staggered to his feet, bruised and bleeding, but not broken. He looked toward Irina, who stood frozen by the fireplace, her perfect hair disheveled, her face pale. Call them off, Alexei demanded, breathing heavily. You can still stop this. Irina's lip trembled, but pride wouldn't let her bend. You were going to replace me, she spat. You deserved it. Alexei shook his head slowly. I gave you everything, and you traded it for blood. Before she could answer, the second hitman appeared behind him, aiming his gun. Misha screamed, "Behind you," and Alexei spun, grabbing a shard of glass from the broken table. The shot went off, a flash of fire, the smell of gunpowder, and the man fell. For a few long seconds, there was only silence. Then, sirens. Blue and red lights flashed outside the mansion gates. Armed police stormed in, shouting commands. Irina tried to run, but two officers caught her by the arm, forcing her to the ground. As she was handcuffed, she screamed, "You'll regret this, Alexei. You'll lose everything." He stood still, soaked in rain and blood, watching the woman he once loved dragged away. Misha stood beside him, small and shivering, yet somehow stronger than anyone else in that house. Alexei put a hand on the boy's shoulder. You saved my life, he said quietly. Thank you. Misha looked up, his eyes tired but calm. You believed me, he said. Most people wouldn't. The next morning was silent. The storm had passed. The mansion was surrounded by police cars and reporters. Alexei sat on the steps of his house, staring at the wet driveway, the same place where a homeless boy had stopped him from stepping into death. Detectives came and went, asking questions, taking photos. Irina's confession would soon be all over the news. Millionaire's wife plots husband's murder for insurance fortune. But Alexei wasn't thinking about headlines. His mind was on the boy. Misha stood a few feet away, wrapped in a police jacket that looked too big for him. He held a cup of hot tea in both hands. You could stay here, Alexei said softly. I can give you a room, food, a real home. Misha smiled faintly, shaking his head. You've already given me something, he said. What's that? Alexei asked. A reason to believe good people still exist. Before Alexei could reply, Misha placed the empty cup on the step and walked away, down the long driveway, toward the city, where the morning sun broke through the clouds. Alexei watched him disappear into the light, a small silhouette against the golden horizon. He whispered to himself, a homeless boy saved a millionaire's life, maybe that's what real wealth looks like. The wind carried his words away as the sun rose higher, a new beginning born from betrayal, courage, and the kindness of a stranger.